I want to start by saying that I loved my sister. I need you to understand that before I tell you what she did, because if you don't understand that first, none of the rest of this will make sense. You'll think I'm bitter or exaggerating or holding a grudge over something small, but this isn't small. What Rachel did to me hollowed me out in ways I'm still discovering years later, in quiet moments when I try to rent a car or apply for something, and my stomach drops before I even remember why. My name is Dana. I'm 34 years old, and for 3 years of my life, 3 years I will never get back, I didn't fully exist. Or rather, I existed twice. Once as myself, and once as the version of me my sister had built in secret. A version with credit cards I'd never applied for, a lease on an apartment in Phoenix I'd never seen, a car loan on a vehicle I'd never driven, and a medical debt from a procedure I'd never had. That version of me was $47,000 in the hole and had 3 pending collections actions by the time I found out she existed. Rachel is 2 years younger than me. Growing up, people always said we looked like twins. Same dark hair, same square jaw, same green eyes we got from our mother's side. I used to think that was a compliment. I used to think being compared to her was a sweet thing. We were close in the way sisters are when they share a room for 17 years, not always by choice, but close enough that the closeness becomes its own kind of love. We fought, we borrowed each other's clothes without asking, we covered for each other with our parents, we cried at each other's milestones. When she moved to Phoenix at 25, I helped her pack the U-Haul. I found out something was wrong the way most people find out their lives have been quietly dismantled. From a letter. Not even a dramatic letter, a collection notice. It came to my parents' house, where I hadn't lived in 6 years, addressed to me from a debt collector regarding a Visa card with a balance of $9,200. My mother called me, confused. I assumed it was a mistake. Identity theft happens all the time, I thought. Some random criminal had gotten hold of my info. I called the credit bureaus, pulled my reports, and sat down to deal with what I assumed would be an annoying but manageable situation. What I found instead was a second life. The Visa card was just the beginning. There were 2 other credit cards, a personal loan from an online lender, the car loan, a 2019 Honda Civic, navy blue, registered to someone at an address in Phoenix I'd never heard of, the apartment lease, and the medical debt, which turned out to be from an urgent care visit and a follow-up prescription, both billed to my name and social security number, both at facilities in the Phoenix metro area. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after I finished going through everything. I'm a methodical person. I'm an accountant, which should tell you something about how I process information. So I didn't spiral immediately. I made a list. I cross-referenced dates. I noted that the earliest fraudulent account had been opened 11 months after Rachel moved to Phoenix. I noted that every address associated with these accounts was within 20 miles of where she lived. I noted that whoever had done this had known my social security number, my mother's maiden name, my date of birth, and my childhood address. All the security questions, all the answers, every piece of information a stranger wouldn't have, but a sister would. I sat with that list for 2 days before I admitted to myself what I was looking at. I didn't call Rachel first. I know some people would have. I know some people would have given her the chance to explain before doing anything else. But I'd seen enough in my professional life to know that confronting someone before you've protected yourself is how you end up with destroyed evidence and a he said, she said situation. So I called a lawyer first. Then I filed a police report. Then I started the process of disputing every fraudulent account with documentation and a case number attached. Then I called my mother. That conversation is one I replay sometimes when I'm trying to understand how families fall apart. My mother listened to everything I said. She was quiet for a long time. And then she said, "Dana, are you sure? Because Rachel has been struggling." I said, "Mom, I have a police report." She said, "Have you talked to your sister?" I hadn't. I told her I would. We hung up. I sat on my couch and felt something cold move through me. Not anger yet, just a premonition of it, the shadow before the storm. I called Rachel that night. She picked up on the third ring and sounded normal. She asked how I was. She mentioned something about a new job she was starting. She sounded like my sister, warm, a little scattered, the same voice I'd known my whole life. And then I told her why I was calling, calmly, without accusation in my tone, just laying out the facts, the accounts, the addresses, the dates, the case number. There was a silence on the line that lasted long enough to tell me everything. Then she said, "Dana, I can explain." I told her to go ahead. What followed was 45 minutes of the most sophisticated emotional performance I've ever witnessed from someone I love. She cried. She said she'd hit rock bottom. She said she was in a bad relationship, that the guy she was with had pressured her, that she'd been scared and didn't know what to do and made terrible choices. She said she'd always planned to pay it back. She said she knew it was wrong. She said she was sorry in the way people say sorry when they're hoping that the word itself will be enough, heavy with feeling, light on detail. I listened to all of it, and then I said, "Rachel, I have a police report filed. That means this is out of my hands now." She stopped crying immediately. "What?" "I filed before I called you. I had to protect myself." The warmth left her voice like someone had flipped a switch. "You filed a police report against your own sister?" "Someone committed identity fraud against me," I said. "I reported it." "That's going to ruin my life." "Rachel," I said, and I was proud of how steady my voice was, "you already tried to ruin mine." She hung up. The calls from my family started within the hour. My mother first, then my Aunt Carol, then my cousin Devin, who I barely speak to, then my mother again. The narrative that had apparently already circulated in the 40 minutes since I'd spoken to Rachel was that I had gone to the police on my own sister over some credit card stuff, that I was being vindictive, that our relationship had always been difficult, a thing I had apparently never been informed of, and that a good sister would have handled this privately. My father, to his credit, didn't call. He texted me 3 days later and said, "I believe you. I'm sorry this happened. I don't know what to say about Rachel." That text meant more to me than I can explain. The investigation took 7 months. During those 7 months, I did not attend my cousin's graduation party because Rachel was going to be there, and my mother asked me not to make things awkward. I did not go home for Thanksgiving. I spent Christmas with my friend Mel and her family, eating takeout Thai food and watching bad movies. And I cried in the bathroom once and then came out and ate more dumplings. I began therapy, which I should have done years earlier for completely unrelated reasons, but which became a lifeline in ways I hadn't anticipated. I also spent those 7 months dealing with the practical fallout of what Rachel had done. Disputing accounts takes time. Even with a police report and a lawyer, creditors are slow, bureaucracies are slow, credit bureaus are slow. My credit score, which had been excellent, was in ruins. I couldn't refinance my car loan. I'd been planning to buy a condo that year and had to put it on hold indefinitely. Every time I opened my laptop to deal with another letter or another form, I thought about my sister in Phoenix, in the apartment she'd rented in her own name after apparently abandoning the one in mine, starting her new job, living her life. I want to be honest with you. There were moments during those 7 months when I thought about dropping it. Not because I forgave her, I didn't, not yet, maybe not ever in the way she wanted, but because the process was exhausting and my family was making me feel like the villain. And some part of me, the part that had shared a room with Rachel for 17 years, wanted it to just be over. I talked about this in therapy. My therapist asked me what dropping it would cost me, not financially, but in terms of who I was. I thought about it for a week, and then I thought about that $47,000 and the medical debt for a procedure I hadn't had, and the way Rachel's voice had gone cold the moment I said police report, and I kept going.
The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Espona, and she was thorough. She pulled financial records, she established a timeline, she identified the IP addresses used to open several of the online accounts, she found the pharmacy where the prescription had been filled and pulled the records, and found a signature. The signature was Rachel's, not mine. Rachel's. She'd signed my name but written it slightly wrong, a thing so careless it almost made me laugh when Espona told me, the kind of mistake someone makes when they're confident they'll never get caught. Rachel was charged with identity theft, fraud, and forgery. 3 charges. The case was solid. The day before her court date, my mother called me and asked me to write a letter to the judge asking for leniency. I sat on the phone with her for a long time. I thought about everything I wanted to say. Then I said, "Mom, I'm not going to do that." She cried. She said I was destroying our family. She said Rachel had made mistakes, but she was her daughter. I said Rachel was my sister, and she'd made me a target, and I'd done nothing wrong, and I was not going to apologize for protecting myself. There was a long pause. My mother said, quietly, "I know that. I know you didn't do anything wrong." That was the first time she'd said it. It didn't fix everything, but it was something. Rachel pled guilty 2 weeks before the scheduled trial. Her lawyer had clearly advised her that the evidence was overwhelming, and a trial would only make things worse. She was sentenced to 3 years probation, mandatory restitution, meaning she had to pay back the $47,000, which was set up as a structured payment plan over 5 years, and 200 hours of community service. She did not serve jail time, which part of me was angry about, and part of me, the part that shared a room with her for 17 years, was quietly relieved about. At sentencing, she gave a statement. I know this because my father attended and told me about it afterward. He said she cried. He said she was sorry. He said she talked about hitting rock bottom and making choices she was ashamed of. He talked about her sister, me, and how she hoped one day I'd be able to forgive her. I wasn't there. I'd chosen not to go. My therapist and I had talked about it, and I'd decided that watching my sister perform contrition in front of a judge was not something I needed in order to move forward. I was at work that day. I ate a sandwich at my desk. I got a text from my father at 2:17 in the afternoon that said, "It's done." I sat with that for a minute. Then I went back to work. It's been 2 years since the sentencing. My credit is mostly repaired now. I bought the condo, I closed 8 months ago, and the morning I got the keys, I sat on the empty floor of the living room and just breathed for a while. The restitution payments come irregularly. Rachel has missed 2 installments and made them up and missed another, which is its own ongoing headache that I handle through the court rather than through contact with her. I see my family more now. My mother and I have found a way back to something that functions, though it's different from before, more careful, more honest. My father and I are closer than we've ever been. I went home for Thanksgiving last year, and Rachel wasn't there. She's been living in Phoenix, and the distance has made the family dynamics easier to navigate. I have not spoken to Rachel since that phone call the night I told her about the police report. She sent me a letter about 6 months after the sentencing, handwritten, 4 pages, the kind of letter that took real effort. I read it twice. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I will. I don't know who I'll be when and if that day comes. What I know is this. I loved my sister. I still carry that love around somewhere in the part of me that remembers who we were before she decided that my life was a resource she could take from. I don't know what she needed so badly that she was willing to do this. I don't know if the story she told me that night, the bad relationship, the rock bottom, and the fear, was true or partly true, or something she'd constructed to make what she did easier to confess. I don't know if I'll ever know. But I know that I didn't destroy my family by filing that police report. The family I thought I had was already built on a lie, on a sister who looked me in the eyes at holidays and phone calls for 3 years while spending money in my name and signing my name to documents and letting me exist as a ghost in a life I didn't know I was living. I protected myself. And then I put myself back together, and now I live in my condo with my good credit and my therapist and my father's texts and my friend Mel and my Thursday night accounting trivia team that have net her come in first place, and I am okay. I am more than okay. I am exactly who I was before she tried to take that from me. Maybe more so.